Listen, here's one of the wildest and most beautiful puzzles of being alive. We spend our entire existence trying to put into words what words can never touch. We attempt to hand over the scent of a flower that nobody else can see, and then we feel crushed when they can't smell a thing. But waking up, my friends, is not something you can be told about. It's something that happens like a tiny seed breaking open in the pitch-black soil where nobody's watching. It doesn't need convincing, doesn't need arguments, doesn't need evidence piled high. It just grows. The massive mistake we make is thinking we can wake someone else up by describing what we've witnessed. We can't. We might whisper stories about the mountain peak, but until they've sweated up that trail themselves, they'll never know how the air tastes up there. You could paint pictures of the ocean for someone who's only known sand dunes their whole life, but they'll still feel grains beneath their toes when they imagine it. Some truths simply cannot be handed over like gifts. They have to be born inside the listener's own chest. There are things, profound and shattering things, that shouldn't be spoken to people who haven't even begun to shift in their sleep yet. Not because they don't deserve to hear them, but because the timing isn't right. The apple drops from the branch only when it's ready. To talk about certain things before their moment arrives is like throwing seeds onto frozen ground in the dead of winter. They'll just turn to ice and rot. The first of these things we cannot speak about touches what you call yourself. For most folks, the idea of me is absolutely sacred. It's the tiny dot around which their whole universe spins and spins. They wake up and announce, "Here I am." They fall asleep and dream, "There I was." And the story keeps rolling from one chapter to the next. It creates this feeling of something solid, something controlled, something purposeful. And yet for someone who has stared into the depths long enough, this me starts to break apart. Like fog burning off when the sun climbs higher, it disappears the moment you reach for it. It was never actually solid, just a pattern moving through time, like a swirl in a creek. There's motion, there's shape, but no separate thing making it happen. The water keeps changing every second, yet the swirl looks like it stays. Now, if you lay this truth on someone who still thinks they're the author of their own story, they'll panic, they'll grip tighter, they'll defend this sense of me like their life depends on it, because to them it absolutely does. So you have to stay quiet. Let them play their character, let them struggle, triumph, fail, fall in love, and break their hearts. The play has to be performed all the way through before the actor realizes it was always just a play. Only when the game of being somebody has gone on long enough does the player start to wonder if maybe they were never separate from the stage at all. Only then, in that quiet moment of recognition, can they grin and say, "Oh, so that's what this was the whole time." You can't force this understanding any more than you can order a rosebud to explode into bloom. It happens when it happens. And this leads us to another secret, one that also can't be shared too early. Most people walk through life convinced they're in the driver's seat, that existence is some kind of machine, and they're at the controls. They make plans and push and hope to bend the world to match their vision. And sure, they might win some small battles, but the enormous tide of existence doesn't even notice them. You can paddle against the current all you want, but the river isn't changing course for you. You can scream orders at the wind, but it blows wherever it feels like going. But if you tell this to someone who still believes his steering wheel matters, he'll collapse into despair. He'll decide that life means nothing if he's not the captain. He won't see that releasing control isn't the same as defeat, it's actually freedom. You see, the current isn't dragging you somewhere against your will. You are the current. The illusion of being in control is just the illusion of being separate, like a wave thinking it can boss around the ocean. When someone's still asleep, they have to try to manage everything, direct it all, fix it all, guard it all, win it all. But eventually, they get exhausted. Their arms go numb. Their plans crumble, their strength runs dry. And in that bone-deep tiredness, the truth starts to peek through. They feel themselves being carried without any effort, and for the first time, they realize the river was never their enemy. That the flow was never something to beat, but something to trust completely. This is exactly why we can't tell them too early. They have to first taste how pointless fighting really is. Only when their own battle has worn them down to nothing does the lesson land. And there's another thing we must keep quiet about, because it touches the deepest terror of all, the fear of dying. Most people live as if death is the ultimate villain. They picture it as a black curtain dropping at the end of the show with absolutely nothing behind it. They decorate the stage and cling desperately to their performance, terrified of the moment when the lights go dark. But what they can't see is that death isn't the opposite of life any more than the peak of a wave opposes the valley. They're part of the same rhythm. You can't have one without the other. Without night, there's no such thing as day. Without death, there's no such thing as life. If you share this with someone who still believes they re their body, they'll shiver with horror. They'll think you're making fun of their suffering. But to someone who has seen through the trick of form, death is just another move in the dance. It's not something to defeat, but something to welcome. You see, life doesn't come into the world from somewhere else. Life grows out of the world like leaves grow from a tree. And death is just those leaves returning to the dirt so the tree can burst with green again. For the ones still sleeping, this truth feels brutal. It strips away their sense of safety, their precious line between me and everything else. So you have to keep it to yourself. Let them fear death for a while longer. Let them build their walls. Let them beg for immortality. Because all of this is part of the journey toward waking up. One day, when they've loved enough, lost enough, and watched enough change to fill 1,000 lifetimes, they all suddenly notice that there was never such a thing as death in the first place. Only transformation. Only the endless unfolding of one gigantic happening. There's a strange irony in the spiritual path. Everyone at some point decides to hunt for the truth, to find the secret, to reach the top, to become enlightened. They imagine that somewhere out there sits the treasure, maybe buried in a holy book or hidden in a cave on some mountain or glowing in the eyes of a teacher. And they fight, they discipline themselves, they chant their prayers, they sit in meditation, and they wait and wait. But here's the thing, the very act of hunting for truth blinds them to it. The seeker creates his own confusion. It's like trying to see your own eyeballs without any mirror, or like a flame trying to touch itself. Now, if you tell this to someone who's still on the hunt, he'll feel betrayed, because to him the search is everything. It gives meaning to his pain. It's the song he hums while crossing the desert. And you can't rip that away from him because it's his method of moving toward the realization, even though he doesn't know it yet. So let him search. Let him pray and doubt and fall down and get back up. Because every step he takes, even the wrong ones, brings him closer to seeing that there was nowhere to go in the first place. The path is the destination. The search itself is the finding. It's only when the seeker gets tired, when he's climbed every mountain and looked behind every curtain, that he finally just sits down, not in despair, but in silence. And in that stillness, the cosmic joke reveals itself. What he was looking for has been looking through him the entire time. The ocean was inside the drop, and the drop was inside the ocean. But if you tell him this too soon, he'll reject it. He'll argue because his mind can't accept yet that the goal was never separate from the journey. His ego still wants to win the race, still wants the gold medal of enlightenment pinned to its chest. So you have to smile and let him keep running, knowing that the finish line circles back to where he started. The next thing that can't be said too early involves what people call good and evil. The human mind loves to split things apart. It loves its neat categories, its opposites, light and dark, heaven and hell, right and wrong. And without these, it feels completely lost. Society, too, is built on these divisions because they create the illusion of order, of morality, of control. But once you start to see clearly, you notice that the opposites aren't enemies at all. They're two hands of the same body, each one defining the other. You can't have up without down, can't have front without back, can't have a saint without a sinner. Try to picture a world with only light and no shadows anywhere, and you'll see it becomes blinding, empty, meaningless. To tell someone who's STI, LL asleep, that good and evil are one movement of the same dance is to invite total misunderstanding. They'll accuse you of justifying cruelty, of excusing sin, of betraying virtue. But you're not doing any of that. You're simply noticing that the play can't exist without contrast. The villain is just as necessary to the story as the hero. The storm gives meaning to the calm. The wise person sees this and doesn't curse the shadow for existing. He sees that all things arise together, joy from sorrow, order from chaos, virtue from temptation. To those still caught in the game, this sounds dangerous. But the awakened ones know that seeing the unity behind opposites doesn't make you immoral. It makes you compassionate. Because when you see that even those who do terrible things are playing their part in the cosmic play, you can't hate them anymore. You might act, you might protect, you might correct, but you don't despise. You understand that all things, even pain, are expressions of the same great harmony. This is why such truths can't be told too soon. They have to be discovered. They have to rise up inside the listener like the slow opening of a flower. You can't pry the petals open with your fingers. You can only wait gently, patiently, and let the sun do what it does. Most people you see aren't tired of their dreams yet. They still believe in their stories, in their separateness, in their wars between good and evil. And that's perfectly fine, because the play of awakening has to begin with not knowing, just as morning has to begin with darkness. The point of this dance isn't to escape it, but to experience it fully, to be lost, to be found, to forget, and then to remember. You can't appreciate waking up without first being asleep. You can't treasure light without having stumbled through shadow. And so when you know something that others don't rush to announce it. Hold it softly like a secret flame. Let it warm your own hands. Let it light up your face. And if they're drawn to your light, they'll come, they'll ask. And then maybe you can speak, not to convince them of anything, but to reflect back what's already beginning to stir inside them. Because awakening isn't something that gets taught. It's contagious. One candle lights another, not through explanation, but through presence. Now, the real art of living among those who are still asleep is not to wake them with noise, but to let them dream beautifully until they begin to stir on their own. It's the art of being quietly awake in the company of dreamers. You don't need to shout your truth from the rooftops. The sun doesn't announce itself, yet everything it touches starts to glow. Many people, when they first glimpse a deeper reality, feel this urgent need to share it with everyone. They run to their friends and family and say, "I've found it, I've seen the truth." And of course, nobody listens. They smile politely, or they laugh, or they turn away. And the poor soul feels rejected, misunderstood, alone. But what they don't understand yet is that truth isn't something to be given away. It's something that reveals itself in silence. The awakened person learns to speak without words. He moves through the world as a calm presence, a quiet harmony. People feel it even though they can't explain why. His peace unsettles the restless, comforts the heartbroken, and draws the curious closer. This is the way to teach without teaching, to embody what can't be said. When you're silent in this way, you're not hiding anything. You're simply respecting the rhythm of each soul's journey. You're allowing them to bloom in their own season. A teacher who forces the bud to open destroys the flower, but the one who simply stands in the sun helps it open naturally. There's tremendous wisdom in restraint, in knowing when not to speak, because words are like stones dropped into a still pond. Once thrown, their ripples can't be called back. The wise person doesn't disturb the water unless it absolutely must be stirred. And yet this silence isn't indifference. It's not cold or superior. It's compassion in its purest form. The understanding that each being must awaken in their own way, in their own time, through their own experience. You don't yank a child out of a dream. You let the morning light do it gently. The world, as you see it now, is full of sleepers acting out their dreams. Some dream of power. Some dream of love, some of fear, some of loss. They argue, they build, they destroy. And through it all, life keeps playing its magnificent song. You don't need to fix them. You don't need to wake them up. Because their dreaming is part of the whole picture. To live as someone who is awake is not to stand above others, but to dance among them. laughing softly, playing your role, knowing that all roles are masks on the same face. You can talk with kings or beggars, saints or criminals, and see no difference. You recognize yourself in all of them, and therefore you can't hate, can't judge, can't divide. This is why the person who has truly seen doesn't brag about their vision. They walk lightly, they love easily, they listen more than they speak. They don't need to convert or convince anyone, because they know that everyone in their own strange way is already walking toward the same home. Some take long winding paths, some take shortcuts, but all roads curve back to the center. And what is that center? It's the stillness from which all things arise. The silence before the first sound, the space inside every form, the pause between every heartbeat. That's where you truly are, not in your thoughts, not in your name, not in your body, but in the boundless awareness that what shares them all. This is what can't be told to those who aren't ready, not because it's hidden, but because it's too simple. The mind searches for something complicated, distant, difficult to reach. It can't accept that what it's seeking is already here in the very act of seeking. So the greatest teaching is silence, not the silence of holding back, but the silence of understanding. A silence that smiles, that listens, that moves with the flow of life without trying to grab it. When you live from that silence, your life itself becomes the teaching. Every gesture, every breath, every glance becomes a sermon without words. People will feel it, some will be scared by it, some will be drawn to it, and some will awaken because of it, though you might never know. And that's enough. You were never meant to save the world, only to see that it doesn't need saving. The universe isn't a problem to be solved, but a song to be heard. And when you stop trying to make it sing your tune, you begin to hear its true music, soft, endless, and unspeakably beautiful. So remember, there are things you must never tell the ones still sleeping. Not because they're secret, but because they can't be taught. The nature of the self, the illusion of control, the mystery of death, the futility of seeking, the dance of good and evil, these aren't lessons, but revelations. They unfold when the heart is ready and not one moment before. Until then, speak gently, live simply, and keep the flame of awareness burning inside you. Let it burn quietly, and those who are meant to see it will see. Those who aren't will one day. Because everything in this strange, miraculous universe is ripening in its own time. And when all is said and done, when every soul has dreamed its dream, the whole play returns to silence, and the silence smiles.